And it was so sweet as well to be there. It felt very important to be there when Ncuti was there on his first day.
And you've actually worked with quite a large amount of doctors on screen.
Yes. Yes. I had absolutely no idea that I would still be talking about Doctor Who all these years later, and that it's such a gift that keeps on giving. I'm Bonnie Langford, and welcome to Doctor Who Insiders. It's going to be interesting.
Welcome, Bonnie, to Radio Times HQ for our
Very
Doctor Who
nice.
Insiders chat.
Very nice here, very posh, very neon. We like this.
We love it. Could you tell me a little bit about how the role came about for you?
Well, it was very unusual, I have to say, because I was doing a show in London, and there was a restaurant that everyone used to go to simply because it would stay open late. You could go there after the show. And it was called Joe Allen's. It's still there to this day. And it was sort of known as the place where theatre people would go. And so I think I went there after the show one day with somebody. And my agent came in with John Nathan Turner. They'd been to see some show or something. They were friends. And John said to me that he'd just been filming an episode of Doctor Who with a couple of people. I think it was Faith Brown, actually, and Jessica Martin was in an episode. I went, oh, I'd love to do that, ever touting for work, I think. And he went, oh, great, that's good to know. And we just chatted, and he was very flamboyant. And John loved theatre. He just loved it. So we got on really well, and we just chatted. And then the next thing I know, a few weeks later, I get this phone call from my agent saying, oh, you met John. Well, he'd really love to talk to you about being the new assistant. I was like, oh, yeah. Having never really watched Doctor Who, of course I knew what it was. It's iconic, but, terrifying. And also, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have things we could just look it up and go, oh, what would that be? So anyway, I went along with it. I went and met John. We had a lovely chat. He showed me, I always say he showed me a paragraph of a character analysis. But actually, I have since seen, which he sent to me later on as a letter, a 2-page document just saying about this character. And he said, how does that feel? I went, yeah, fine. It was through the summer. It meant I was at home. I wasn't doing anything, and I just went into this show very blindly.
Right.
And I enjoyed it tremendously. I had a good time doing it, but I think were I to take it on now, I would probably focus on it slightly differently. I had no idea of the impact. And it was interesting as well because most of the time people who played the assistants, it was very early on in their careers and certainly in their TV careers. So it was unusual to have a companion who had a profile. But at that point, the show was going through a lot of difficulty. John adored it and was fighting for its survival. And I have a feeling that I was brought into it because I was getting a lot of column inches at that time with publicity, and he knew that it would have an impact on that side of it. I have my views about my own performance in it because I've been forced to see it since. I hate watching myself on the TV, and but I have had to for looking at things where you have to do items that go with the box sets. Yeah. And you have to watch yourself, and I'm like this, I wouldn't do it like that anymore. I was in a very different place in my life, but always I had I was very earnest and very keen to do 100% of my job, even if it didn't feel comfortable to me. And I did my 2 seasons in the show as I agreed to do, and that was it. I had absolutely no idea that I would still be talking about Doctor Who all these years later, and that it's such a gift that keeps on giving. It really is.
Yeah, I feel like you're bound to look back on yourself though with very critical eyes.
Tell me about
is there any kind of one thing that you look back and you think I would have done that a bit differently?
Hundreds of things.
Yeah.
A load of things. Everything I look at and think, I was just far too perky, far too big a performance. I've been working a lot in theatre, and you have to understand how to sort of change the size of, and I did try and do that, but I think it was far too bouncy. She was very irritating. But then, as I say, I've seen this. I didn't know I had this 2-page document that John had written, and it does say Mel is very irritating. So I think I achieved the bit. I think I achieved the brief at that point. I did what was required of me. Would I have done that nowadays? No. And in fact, it taught me so much.
Yeah.
It taught me so much. Not only did I get to work with a lot of people who were fabulous artists. We had amazing guest artists that came in. And I used to feel that sometimes it was like a bit of a repertory company, where we were the two regulars, whoever that would be, Colin and myself, or Sylvester and myself, and that these wonderful artists would come in and we would rehearse. Don't do that these days. And then go and film it all in 2 days, unless we had location work. I learned how to keep warm in very difficult surroundings. I learnt not to wear white in a quarry. I learnt how to work for the right size. Poppy's looking at the mic.
She's got something to say.
Yes, what are you going to say? And I learnt how to just be a little bit more realistic and calm. And I learnt how to scream quietly on camera. And I learnt to say, I don't want to scream. And I also learnt, so when I went into EastEnders later, my character at that point, they wanted her to teach people how to dance or to do a dance routine. And I said, no, can we change that? Because it's really obvious. And it's not being that character. It's representing who I am supposed to be, this character called Bonnie Langford. So can we keep away from that? And it taught me that, because there is nothing more irritating than somebody telling you how to exercise and how to change your life, which is what they used of me in Doctor Who. Because at that point, Colin was trying to go through a fitness program himself, and they wanted to highlight that. How rude! You wouldn't do that nowadays. It's so rude. But yes, it made her even more irritating that she was trying to make the Doctor exercise. I also don't like carrot juice, personally, and they were on about the carrot juice. So in the end, no. I never drank the carrot juice in the end. I avoided that. But there are lots of things I learnt from it at that stage.
I mean, but Mel would be an entirely kind of different character had you not, given the performance you had at that time, and clearly, as you say, sort of this 2-page document that you've since found. I mean, at the time, did you, you've just spoken a bit about how you did a bit in EastEnders, but did you feel empowered at all to give any input on the character, or is that something that maybe comes a bit later?
When I joined, it was in a very difficult place. And my first bit of filming, I said, I don't want to go anywhere near fire. Of course, they put me near fire. So, note to self, don't say you don't like things. Only say you don't like what you actually do like, and then you don't have to face your fears. And we were doing night shoots, so that was quite tricky in itself. But also, the actual storyline was Trial of a Time Lord. And it was very serious. Much more serious than I had expected. And I knew that I came into this difficult situation. Colin was fighting for the show as well as John. And there was a lot of angst and very, a lot of notes, a lot of sessions where we were sent to a side room so there I was in this sort of side room with Colin Baker, Michael Jaston, who's so naughty, and Linda Bellingham, the lovely Linda. We were kept in a room of this size while they discussed the show during rehearsals, where the writers and John and different producers and script editors and directors were discussing what should be changed. I mean, that's sort of slightly unheard of now. But it was very, very serious. And, of course, I found that quite amusing. Well, it was a mixture. I think nervous laughter I would get, sort of, oh, gosh, what have I come into? Yeah. I thought this was a light, just a nice, light programme. Secondly, as well, I was supposed to be, they made me wear very high heels, which I couldn't really walk in properly, so I felt I was tottering. And but that was because Colin was much taller than me, and we couldn't fit in a 2-shot. Also, I never went anywhere near a computer.
Yeah.
But of course you didn't then.
Yeah. We
didn't have phones like we do now. I mean, we didn't have basically a computer on our wrist. So it was a very different world. And we didn't have the budget to keep up with how technology was expanding and improving on a daily basis. So it seems there's a lovely charm about it, but it was definitely very low-key and very different to how it is these days.
Yeah, and you had a big challenge on your hands really coming in, because I believe Mel's the only companion to this day where we've not seen her introductory adventure. So you and Colin immediately had to have this rapport and chemistry. How was that for you? Was that easy with him?
Well, luckily I'd worked with Colin before. I did a pantomime with him in what was it, Dick Whittington, and he was the baddie. He was King Rat, and I was the principal girl, Alice Fitzwarren, in Lincoln. And so I knew him from that. And that, he was an absolute laugh. He was a complete raver in that. So that's why it was really strange when I came into this TV show and Colin was very sort of serious and very austere, and he was very friendly with me, of course, but there was a lot going on, and suddenly there he was plonked with this red-headed woman, and who he did vaguely know, but from a very different genre to Doctor Who, and so yes, I found it quite daunting and difficult, and also I couldn't really talk to Colin because he had his mind elsewhere and was definitely trying to make the show. He loved the show. He was always he's very, very loyal to it. And so I think he was treated, he was used as a scapegoat a bit. And if you stick your head above the parapet, it can be quite a dark place to be and a hard place to be. But he found that the show had not been treated well, and I think he was upset about that. So to come into all this sort of minefield of stuff of which I was told nothing, maybe that was a good thing, maybe it wasn't. I don't really know, but that's what it was. And yeah, it was hard to do that. When Sylvester came in, I knew Sylvester as well. We'd done a show together called Pirates of Penzance. In fact, we'd been married every night, and we had to waltz, and he trod on my foot every night. But so I felt, it was almost like a fresh start for both of us.
Yeah, and in Sylvester's early years particularly, I think there was that bit of comedy, that bit more entertainment. Did you feel a bit more at home?
Well, I think what happened, and it's interesting, is that when you go into a new environment, you try and bring your safety net with you. And so Sylvester was very much the comedy guy. He'd always done all these pratfalls and played his spoons and all that. So that was his comfort blanket to bring. And so they tried to sort of put that. And I always think it's really difficult for somebody coming into a role that's so iconic like that, because they say to you, okay, let's see, who is your doctor? What is your doctor going to be? How are you going to be? You don't know. Not really. You don't know until you try a few things. And so, as I say, you bring your safety net with you. You try and sort of think, oh, I could put this in. These are my tricks. These are my things that make me feel safe. And maybe later you think, oh, why did I do that? But it's for that sort of personal situation. You don't really know. It's like, I remember somebody said to me when I went into EastEnders, they said, you are the only constant with your character. With Doctor Who, it's slightly different because John was a constant there. It was very much his baby. But certainly with something like Enders, you've got different directors every block. You've got often different execs, different writers. They don't know your voice. You don't know your voice yet of this character. You come in and you don't have that rehearsal process in order to find something and think, oh, I might, what choices am I going to make? Because when you're in a situation, they might be completely different to what you've thought of at home. So I do think it's quite a challenge particularly for a new doctor to come in and say, this is my doctor, this is who I'm going to be, because that will change. You will develop, you will find more, but you have to have a starting point. And sometimes with a character, that starting point can actually strangle you a bit. It can keep you in a stranglehold, but you have to start somewhere.
And you've actually worked with quite a large amount of doctors on screen.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, coming back and working with David, what was that like? Obviously, he's known as such an iconic doctor.
Yes. Oh, it was heavenly. It was absolutely heavenly. I mean, I look back, and as I said before, I never realised and never assumed and would never have imagined that Doctor Who would have such a long-lasting impact on my career as such. And so when I left the show with Sylvester, I thought that was it. Like any job, you turn your back on it, you think that's it, done. And then a few years later, I was asked to participate in an EastEnders stroke Doctor Who crossover for children in need. Well, the weird part about that was that, looking back on it now, I actually filmed with John Pertwee on Albert Square, on Bridge Street, on the stall that ended up being my son's stall in EastEnders, with Adam Woodyard and Gilly Tailforth and Wendy Richards, no longer with us. But I thought, how bizarre is that sort of come full circle? And then to do the Big Finish audios, and then with Sylvester and Michael again, meeting Michael Jaston and Colin. And then out of that comes doing, well, Jodie's, the one with Jodie, and then the new season with David, and then it being Ncuti's By Generation. I mean, who'd have thought? And with Catherine and Neil Patrick Harris, who I've just seen on Broadway, and it's amazing, isn't it? It's absolutely amazing. And the script that Russell sent me, what I was so surprised about as well, he sent it to me in about the January, I think it was. Might have been February, but January. And we didn't film until April, May. And I went along to Cardiff to just say hello and to see the costume people, and that's the thing, as you usually do, for a couple of weeks before, quite a while before, to say what we were going to do. And I said, I better have an up-to-date script, because having been in things like a soap, changes on the hourly, on the day amends, as they call them. And I said, so I better get a new script. Barely anything had changed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it just stayed as it was, because it was perfect. Being on set with Catherine and David was fabulous, actually. It was such a happy set, and I think everyone was so pleased to be there. And the fact that it was just remarkably different from the budget that I'd been used to from the 80s. I mean, really, it was like doing an Avengers, sort of a Marvel movie. It was massive and quite daunting. Yeah. I was with Gemma as well, Gemma Redgrave, who's such a mate now. We've been able to become such friends. And Ruth, and we had a lovely time. It was a very hot set. When we were out, we were filming a lot on a makeshift helipad. Oh, it was hot. It was hot those days, and the seagulls wouldn't shut up. But
the realities behind the glamour.
The seagulls wouldn't shut up, you know. But and it was so sweet as well to be there. It felt very important to be there when Ncuti was there on his first day. Thank goodness for him it was hot, because he didn't have any trousers on. And it was just very happy and very welcoming, and I felt like we were part of something that was quite special.
Yeah. And we've just seen Ncuti's, just a couple of months ago, we've seen Ncuti's final episode.
I know.
Could you just give us a few words about what he was like to work with? I mean, he was amazing to watch.
Ncuti is a darling. He has such charisma. He walks onto a set, and there is joy and laughter, and presence, a tremendous amount of presence. You know when he's there, and he got on really well from the outset with David, because they'd both been to the same drama school, different times, but they'd both been to the same drama school. And so they talked, I think they were talking about lots of old teachers and things like that. And that made him feel very much at home. And what they were doing when they first started was very, very technical. And so it took time. But the fact that we had sort of days to do something, when normally it would be, okay, 10 minutes to finish this scene, let's get it done. You know, it was just so different. And Ncuti, when he first started, actually, we went out for dinner in Cardiff, and suddenly we were still wearing masks at that time as well. I said, you better put a mask on, because anybody sees you. And we went into this restaurant, and just the two of us, we were just having a chat about it all. And this guy who was serving, he was just completely enamoured of the fact, because he knew Ncuti from Sex Education. And no idea I was sitting there, didn't put two and two together. It was absolutely great, because I then said to Ncuti, I don't know that we should be out. I don't know if we should be seen. And then people would see me, and literally it was that moment, and thank God nobody put two and two together. But he's such a sweetheart, and he had a lot on his plate. It was very intensive, long days. As I say, we had a long time to shoot, and it was very technical, a lot of it. But we would laugh a lot, and just he's a real sweetheart. I don't think he had any idea what he was letting himself in for. Nobody does, particularly these days when there's such a lot riding on it. I didn't see the last episode live because I was in America at the time, so I watched it on my little iPad, and it was phenomenal. And who knows what's going to happen next? Yeah. Literally, who knows?
Did you know what was coming with Billy?
Not a clue.
Not a clue.
Not a clue. Not a Scooby. It was quite different to how we had filmed it. We'd filmed it the year before, and I had to pop back and do some extra filming, which I couldn't do with everybody else, which I was really disappointed about. But I was in America at the time, and but I was really, really grateful that they included Mel being busy somewhere else, which had happened twice, actually. I had to miss out on another episode, which was upsetting because I couldn't film it. So, but you just don't know. You don't know what's coming in your world. You don't know, well, I better not, A, we've all got bills to pay, and so we take a job. And then B, something else comes along and you go, oh, I wish I'd done that first. But not to worry. It's such a happy place. I really enjoy working there. My days in Cardiff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did love that Mel got a mention in that episode, because people are going to be wondering about where she is.
Yeah. And there was one episode where she was down in Sydney.
Yeah.
Solving something.
Yeah.
That's because I couldn't do it because I was meant to be in it. I know. Never mind.
Are you going to be in the spin-off?
I can't tell you anything. I can't tell you anything. I'm sworn to secrecy on everything. Yeah.
It's so exciting, though, for there to be a spin-off kind of with Eunice, a bit more of a focus, because what a brilliant team. Yeah. And as you say, Gemma is so brilliant.
Yes. I don't know if you heard her laugh, but it's so infectious. Oh, my goodness. You get Gemma laughing and everybody laughs, and we can't keep going.
I love that. And what's your kind of big hope for the future of Doctor Who? Obviously, sort of no decisions have been made at the minute, which we know. What's your big hope?
Well, because there is so much love for the show, it has to have a future and a past. But I think too many people love it for it to fade away. So I'm sure there will be something that will happen with it. I'm probably the last to know. I don't know. But it feels like it's in a really good place, and exciting things are to come.
Why do you think it's lasted this long? What gives it that longevity?
The show has great love. Generally, people say that was my Doctor, that was my era. It's often those things where somebody tells you about a world event, and you go, oh, I remember being there. You weren't there, but you remember where you were in your life at that time. And those are extremely important memories to people. And generally, a lot of people say, oh, I used to watch it with my dad, or I used to watch it with my family, or I would, like I said, I would hide behind the sofa. I am immediately visualising that sofa, blue, with kind of speckles on. And I'm thinking, yes, I did used to hide behind this sofa. And it takes you back to a place in your life. And to be able to do that as an actor is extremely important, and as storytellers and all the people that are involved with making a show like that. And no matter how much we look back at those initial episodes and think, gosh, they were very basic and very raw, it doesn't matter, because it's storytelling and it's what happens in our imagination and how we choose. It's like when you read a book and you visualize something, it might be completely different to the person next to you. That's why audio is so important. That's why podcasts are important. It feels very personal and very truthful and very intense to you in your own life. So for a show to have lasted 62 years is incredible. It takes us through so much of history. As I say, I was a computer programmer. I never went anywhere near the TARDIS, which I remember being in part of my character breakdown. She never goes near the TARDIS console, and we know why. And it's like, well, I don't know why.
Do we know why?
Well, no, we don't know why. But there we go. Let's find out. ...
Yeah.
Because obviously something terrible happens, and it leads us somewhere else. So. But with something like sci-fi, at one point when the show was first on, sci-fi was and fantasy, it didn't really exist as a genre, certainly not on TV. Look at it now. I mean, it's massive.
Yeah.
And all the little channels that go from it, all the little sort of bubbles that can come from there. I'm laughing because I remember being stuck in a bubble myself as a character. And you know, you can take it anywhere. You can take it backwards, forwards, upside down, wherever you choose to go. And no one can say with something like Doctor Who whether something is right or wrong, actually. It can be wrong to how you feel it, but it's personal. To the next person, that's absolutely right. So I can't see that it would or could be let go. It's part of our infrastructure as such. It's part of, it has such a legacy that it will always be there somewhere.
Thanks for watching. Head to radiotimes.com for the full interview and for more Doctor Who news.